I seriously hate audacity. Yeah. Hello out there, this is Vegan Cheesecake, reading for you today Trixie's new trick by Defenceless. I'm not gonna continue so far on this My Little Pony Monty Python thing. I know it's interesting, I know I like it a lot, but I got like 50 views on my last video. I bet that will never change. Either I advertise this and do it seriously, or I don't. And this is way more interesting to do. Trixie's new trick. And this is also going out to a very special user on EQF, because EQF is my favorite place to hang out, and that's how I roll. Find Defenceless on FA or on Tumblr. Better shutting up now, better get started. Trixie's new trick by Defenceless, link in the description. And be sure to hear more from Defenceless pretty soon. New town, new luck. Ever since she had left Ponyville, it had been hard to find a place that didn't know her name and the negativity that it had brought with her. The hardest part, however, was that she could not impress any pony with her story of an Ursa Major anymore. She needed a new story, or trick, anything that would help her back to her former glory. Placing her cart at the outskirts of town, she got herself ready to go out, brushing her silky light blue mane. The pony she stared at in the mirror gave her a thoughtful glance back. All she hoped is that the muse would strike her and tell her what to do in her next show, if she went for a walk across the small village. But as she laid her brush down, it knocked at the door. Odd. She didn't think that she had parked her cart in a forbidden place. Opening only the upper part of the door, she leaned out, seeing a dark blue unicorn wearing a neat suit. This sight was even more odd. Yes, she looked at him, hoping he wasn't there to cause any trouble. I happened to see your card and your name, the stallion with the golden eyes replied. Do you happen to be a magician? Why, yes. Yes, I do. She put a hoof to her chest, swooshing her mane once proudly. I am the great and powerful Trixie. She could only hope that her name wasn't too well known here. He smiled at her, however. That was a good sign for a start. That is wonderful. You see, I used to be a magician myself. However, my magic isn't quite what it used to be. But I have created so many tricks. It would be a shame if I couldn't give them on. He paused briefly. Would you be interested in being my student? No pony in town wished to. Now, as if one had sent him to her. This was truly a delightful moment indeed. He would tell her all his tricks and she would be back in business once again. It could not be better. With a flash of her horn, she offered him to come in, swinging the bottom half of the door open. I would love to. A young magician like me can never stop learning, right? This was the beginning of a wonderful session of learning. For a pony who could barely wield magic anymore, he had made quite some swells in the time that he was able to do. It reached from little ones, such as making doves appear out of thin air, up to complicated ones, such as surviving a tank full of water for several minutes. But nothing truly thrilled her. She did learn new things, but these were all tricks that had been performed time and time again by others. They were all nothing new. It was hard for her to hide her boredom. She only hoped that he would eventually have something more advanced for her, something new and exciting. And as the last thing, I have my grand finale, he spoke up, pulling out a little book from the pocket of his suit. It was something that only I seemed to manage to pull off. It's completely safe, however, once you get the hang of it. Now this sounded interesting. Her ears perked up as she leaned in closer to him to see the book better. What is it? I call it the living balloon. You bid one of the ponies in the audience to pump you up with a normal pump. Best bet is to let them all take turns, though. With this spell, your capacity is as good as unlimited. No matter how much air they pump into you, you will just grow and grow. At one point, they'll get tired and stop, making you not only have a true grand finale, but you will also have them wondering just how you did it. He seemed rather proud of this. Trixie had heard of the ballooning spell before, but as far as she knew, it could only take a pony to a certain capacity before needing to be applied again. It was unbelievably risky, as if the spell wasn't casted on one again in time. Well, but this spell would make that step unnecessary and let the entire trick sound far more entertaining and safe. She could imagine it getting bigger and bigger, overtowering the others, being truly great and powerful at the end of her show. Oh, she really did like the sound of this one. But how do I get rid of all the air? She'd have to ask about deflating. All you have to do is breathe it out. If you are good, it takes about 5 minutes to return to normal, depending on how eager your audience is with pumping. That sounded simple enough. And it's really perfectly safe? She remembered one pony nearly exploding at the attempt at such a trick, as he forgot to reapply the spell. She didn't want the same happening to her. Sure it is. If you want, we can demonstrate it outside. You can apply it to me and then pump away. How does that sound? However, could she say no? If he did burst, it wasn't her problem. If not, she had a new spell to perform. Either way, this was a win-win situation. She nodded, going to look for a pump. She knew she had one for the big balloons she sometimes used. Let's do this, she grinned. Outside, she was instructed with the spell. It was not even that complicated, having a mechanism built in to renew itself at certain points. A perfect solution for the problem. Her horn lit up as she casted it on the older blue pony, nodding once as she felt that she had performed it on him correctly. He stuck the end of the pump in his mouth before tying a ribbon around his snout. Then he offered her to do the honor. At first, she was unsure about this. The first pumps were slow and careful, as she watched his stomach gently grow with each hiss of air. But she got the hang of it rather soon, getting quicker and quicker as she went on. His stomach began to shape out like a sphere, slowly pressing his legs out in all 4 directions until it touched the ground, lifting him up to the floor. Trixie knew that the most would be near bursting at this point, so she gave him a light poke. He had to giggle at the touch, but it appeared he was still all squishy, like a halfway filled balloon. On she went with pumping, noticing that his cheeks started to puff up more and more, his legs, stomach lifting him higher and higher as it was performing a perfect orb beneath him. Normally, the spells at this point would cause the limbs and head to sink down, or the skin to grow stretch marks, but not here. All he did was rest upon his ever-growing stomach, and still no signs of strain or overfullness. Again she pumped more into him. Each new load of air now let his skin creak. She felt worried, but he seemed perfectly calm, looking at her with a smile on his puffy face. The only thing that she noticed now was that his limbs appeared to be rounding out too. At this point he was nearly bigger as her cart too. No pony could reach this size with the normal ballooning spell. That made this the most remarkable thing he had to offer. It was perfect. But for all that was good, she was exhausted too. It did feel harder to pump than it looked like. Fumbling around with his plush, air-filled legs, he managed to get the pump off before going into a state of breathing out, without a stop. Indeed, within 5 minutes he had fully returned back to his old size, not one sign left of him being a floaty toy just a few minutes ago. And how did you like it? He smiled at her before bowing. It was great. Trixie will perform it as her grand finale this Sunday. She struck a pose. He nodded with a happy chuckle. I cannot wait to see it, Trixie. I will be there. And that concludes part 1 of this little fanfic. I'm awfully sorry that I cannot record any longer. I would if I could, but I can't. So hopefully see you in part 2. Part 2 is always more interesting than part 1, you know that. And see you in a minute.